Below the full moon, Jahire and Jiwon run toward the fortress, where Jiwon notices the energy that coming from the fortress, as he assumes that the fortress master is indeed in the state of severe soul corruption. The spiritual pressure is tenfold more than what he felt from Janya, deep within the inner fortress, more accurately, beneath the fortress. That's when Jiwon remembers when Chiver didn't ask for compensation. Instead he asked for only a favor, which is to save the fortress master. Jiwon then asks Jahire whether the fortress master is going through deadification, as he says that it is, and explain that the fortress master suddenly went berserk tonight. He also adds that usually it only happens once a week, but strangely it happens today. Jahire also tells Jiwon that the fortress master is a good person. On top of that, he is a living legend, since he was one of the few people who went on the Abyss expedition with the divine physician. As both of them land with the old man in tow, suddenly there is tremor from within the fortress. The dead aura is extruding further and stronger from deep below the fortress. Not only that, also appear the Disruption Tower Captain and the Despair Tower Captain. One that's short and uses a hammer as a main weapon, and one that's kind of tall and uses a spear. They greet Jahire and the newly residents of the Chaos, as Jahire asks them to step aside. But they refuses to do so, saying that's going to be a problem, adding that they have their orders. They intending to go against the wishes of the heaven, while they wear an emblem, saying that the only heaven they have is the forbidden heaven. In an instant, they dash and jump on top of Jahire and Jiwon. As they stamp on the ground, Jahire pushes Jiwon aside to prevent him from getting hurt. At the moment, Jahire is able to hold his ground against the two captain that strike him. That makes him think, as he didn't expect the Forbidden Heaven clan to have people in the fortress. He expresses how the outer fortress captain had underestimated him, saying that they shouldn't think that they are still the same as they were in the past. He tells them to go back, and if they do, he says that the fortress master will forgive them. The Despair Captain asks him which fortress master is, whether Jahire talks about the thing that's bound underground. It turns out that the fortress master can't even control his own strength, and he can't even distinguish between good and evil. The Despair Captain says that isn't the heaven that they served, and he asks the Demon Extermination Squad Captain, Jahire, whether he's still serving that thing despite seeing the current situation. Though, Jahire believes that the fortress master will return. The Despair Captain says that is precisely why conversation won't work between them, as the Disruption Captain swing his hammer, going to bash Jahire's head. That blow a massive hole in the fortress ground, as Jahire gets slammed on the ground. The duo says that if Jahire had been a little smarter, they wouldn't had to fight like that. Though, the two of them are just 4th stage adapter, and there's no way they could defeat a stage 5 adapter like Jahire. Their growth is weird, as if they were deadificated, and Jahire shouts to Jiwon telling him to run away. But, as he shouts, Chung-hyo gets thrown into his face. Jiwon throws the old man as he says that it's the revenge for pushing him earlier. The two captain asks whether Jiwon is the one who's able to perform the dead slash, and they starts to talk to themselves. They mock Jiwon for having such a small size, thinking that he is weak and all. But, in an instant, Jiwon appears behind the Disruption Captain. He doesn't even unsheath his sword and goes for a punch. That single punch blows the hammer users away, slamming him into the wall. Notices that Jiwon is quite strong. The Despair Captain starts using a defensive stance. Now, Jiwon mocks them back, saying that they have too many openings for them to call that a defense. Jiwon throws a low blow to the Despair Captain, yet he manages to still stands up and even goes for a counter-attack, which Jiwon evades. The Despair Captain throws tantrum as he attacking Jiwon. In that instance, Jiwon also can feel a stronger energy as compared to just then, and tries to get his head around it. Looking at the Despair Captain, saying that someone like Jiwon will not be able to save the Fortress Master, let alone getting to him. There, Jiwon realizes that the power comes from fear, which makes him feels how ridiculous that is, that they are trying to betray others with only that level of abilities. Though, Jiwon says that he can't save the Fortress Master, as it was the old man's job. However, killing the two turncoat captain would be a different story. He jumps up towards the Despair Tower Captain, ready to whoop the captain's asses. Meanwhile, at the dungeon of the fortress, the aura extruding from the deadification fortress master is not stopping. Chiver with the other high officials of the fortress gather, watching nervously as they can't believe that after only one day the dead slash has been used, the fortress master already going berserk. Though, the divine physician was there in the morning, and they already confirmed that the energy had calmed down. Chiver left wondering why the fortress master suddenly went berserk. If only he had 1 month more, they would be able to ask for Jiwon's help after a few trial. But to suddenly happen right after the dead slash is too suspicious. Chiver then suspects that there are people there who know who Jiwon is. He knows it for sure that there have been traitors among them. Chiver reminds himself that before shit hit the fan, the fortress master wanting to check the outer tower to see the people who's able to control soul corruption even though he is not from the Emerald Bug clan. Chiver tries to persuade him to not go by himself and send the captain instead, but the fortress master insisting to go himself. The fortress master then boasts himself, saying that he is the person who has survived that battlefield, the expedition incident, though he comes back infected with the soul corruption, and immediately went beyond help. For now, Chiver can only suspect that Manhwa that did it, but he doesn't have the proper evidence to back it up. Then, Manhwa tells the people around to eliminate the fortress master as the corruption get extremely worse. Chiver tries to hold them off and tells them to wait for the divine physician, but Manhwa says that the dead / can't win against the corruption, and he offers to charge at the fortress master together and perform dead seal. Chiver still attempting to stop them, yet the Dark Squad captain comes in with the spirit stone in hand. And now Chiver knows that the Dark Squad captain that originally belongs to the inner administrator is a traitor, and inside the box is the stone that Jiwon previously had. Manhwa says that the future of Gorgon is at stake there, and asks how could Chiver hides the stone to himself. He asks again whether Chiver intending to let the fortress master turn into super large size dead. The divine physician is not there, and what Manhwa says is actually quite reasonable, but once the dead seal performed, there is no way to bring back the fortress master. Even though there is no Emerald Bug clan around, Manhwa bring his men that are looking a bit sketchy and so wrong, who he claims to be able to perform the technique. After they had done with the seal, the spirit from the fortress master will be contained into the spirit stone, and could become the next master of Gorgon. Depends on who possesses it. It could be dangerous if it falls into the wrong person. Right as the men touch the spirit stone, Chiver realizes that it was all planned by the outer administrator, Hyman. Everything that has happened since half a year ago, from when the fortress master's soul got corrupted until he went berserk. So he shouts to the guard to capture Hyman immediately, but to his surprises, no one follow his command. Chiver falls into his knees, losing all of his strength, realizing that all of them are all in on it. Then there is nothing that he can do anymore, as he inwardly apologized to the fortress master, adding because that they weren't able to protect Gorgon. He cries his eyes out as the men perform the dead seal to the tied up, berserk fortress master. Suddenly, the ceiling smashed wide open with a thrust, though it quite make a blow into the dungeon. There seems to be no one that gets hurt, only some that nearly evading the rubble. Though, the people are left wondering with what just happened. That instance, a glimmer of hope appears in front of Chiver's eyes, as the Dark Squad captain and Hyman twitching their tongue, thinking what a bad timing it was. Appear Jiwon, with his spirit sword in hand, and Jahire who looks like he is fine after the fight against the two captain. They stand nonchalantly as nearly all of the people gathered there are traitors. Manhwa asks who Jiwon is, to dare coming there in that manners. Jahire tells the outer administrator to stop there, as he throws the two beaten up captain into his face. Jahire says that his traitorous acts have already been exposed to the world, as they already spilled it all out. The Disruption Tower captain tries to apologize, but Hyman blows him up with no mercy anyway. That surprises Jahire, as Hyman claims that the two captain decided to commit suicide upon being exposed. Then asks how could Jahire blames him for being unable to stop them from committing. So Jahire orders the guards to apprehend the outer administrator. Instead of following the orders, the other captain instead bear their sword against Jahire. They apologize and asks Jahire to stand down, and tells him not to go against the will of the Forbidden Heaven clan, and they need him to stay put until the fortress master's seal is complete. Jiwon, who only being silent this whole time, finally open up his mouth. He says that in return for saving the fortress master, Gorgon will provide Jiwon with protection, adding that Chiver made the wrong promise with him. Since Gorgon can't promise him protection, Jiwon offers to change the contents of the promise. Jiwon says that he will save the fortress master and kill all the traitors present. In return, Jiwon wants the old man, and he wants to set up the Abyss expedition again. Now Jiwon demands that, and surprises all of the high-ranking adapter around. Hyman expresses on what a pile of nonsense that is, adding that he has already heard of the story about there being a person who was able to kill Janya, who was a dead in one strike. He thought that was a lie, but now he knows that Jiwon indeed did it, and he decides to go all out against Jiwon, ordering his men to swarm in. That instant, Jiwon tightly grabs his sword, preparing to welcome all of the members of the Forbidden Heaven clan that start coming into the dungeon, including those who already in the dungeon. That instance, Jiwon uses his trust non-stop, like a sewing machine. He trusts towards the members of the Forbidden Heaven clan one by one. Even the Dark Squad captain doesn't have enough capabilities to defend against the thrust and can only swear to himself. Though, they keep coming at Jiwon endlessly, and the members of the Forbidden Heaven clan seems endless. So Jiwon had enough of it. He sights to their seer number and uses normal thrust towards the mobs. It decimates their numbers, and Jiwon also points his normal thrust to Hyman, the first elder of the Forbidden Heaven clan. He tries to block it for a moment, only to realize that it's impossible to do so. In the end, he evades the energy from the attack and it makes a massive hole in the dungeon. There when Hyman realizes that if he hadn't stopped blocking, he definitely wouldn't have survived. That shocks both of Jahire and Chiver as to how strong Jiwon is, while the people from the Forbidden Heaven clan talks between themselves as to proceed with the seal, or to use Black Cloud now to turn all of the people in Gorgon into dead. Jiwon notices that, then he calls out to Hyman, saying that he is Gorgon Fortress Outer Administrator, and also the first elder of the Forbidden Heaven clan. He doesn't know what they are trying to do or why they want to corrupt souls, but Administrator knows that. And Jiwon, like people like them, it's really something he is thankful for. Because of people like them, he can destroy that world and still feels at ease. Jiwon starts to gather his energy, focusing it on his sword, and Hyman notices it, telling all of the members under his command to take Jiwon down with whatever they need to do. The people start running in again as Hyman runs away from Jiwon. With all of they got, they attempt to strike Jiwon. As the sole target, Jiwon himself points his sword towards the sky. He smiles as he feels relief that he can destroy everything without thinking that innocent person will be affected. And he strikes it, a strong thrust upwards, towering the sky itself, decimating the member of the Forbidden Heaven clan who dared to stand on his way. High up above the sky, the energy from the thrust becomes a firework that spread across the fortress, as Hyman can only witness the Soul King leaving him unable to do anything. While Chiver and Jahire sees that something had born, an overwhelming hope that the people of Chaos needed. The scattered energy falls down towards the people of the Forbidden Heaven clan, like Jiwon intending to do that in the first place. That reminds Chiver to the Fortress Master, that explained that an overwhelming hope is one that doesn't falter in the face of anything. As Chiver can't believe that he feels the overwhelming hope that the Fortress Master spoke of, from Jiwon, the man who's speaking of Chaos's annihilation. When the dust settled, Hyman's body split in two, saying how monstrous bastard Jiwon is. However, he is too late, as the Fortress Master is already beyond help. But Jiwon doesn't seem a bit care about it, stabs the traitor in the face, and decimates him, to be the nutrient of the illusion tree. Then, Jahire comes in running, and now with full respect he says that the old man is not waking up no matter how hard Jahire tries. Without thinking too much of it, Jiwon grabs the old man and slams him hard into the wall, surprising the extermination captain. Though, as the divine physician wakes up, the Fortress Master's soul corruption goes beyond the point of no return, and the corruption reaches 99.9%. The Fortress Master's spirit power finally break, and his deadification finally begun.